Seto Kaiba's signature monster, the Blue Eyes White Dragon, is one of, if not arguably the most iconic monster card of all time. But though it's widely known and recognized, not everyone knows the full story behind Blue Eyes White Dragon. What's going on, people? Gunsblazing back at it again, welcoming you to yet another episode of Yu-Gi-Oh! Lore. There are hidden stories behind the card art, and we're here to expose them. Behind the names, the stats, the effects, and so on. And as for Blue Eyes, there's some stories that are not so hidden, like in the manga and anime, and some that you may not have known too much about. But don't worry, we'll get into both today. So why is Kaiba so obsessed with this monster? Why is it even called the White Dragon?
The White Dragon with the blue eyes!
When it looks blue. Is the dress blue or white and gold? All these questions and more getting answered right now. So to know Blue Eyes, we have to know Seto Kaiba. Seto and Blue Eyes go way back, and I mean so far back that we have to take a look at his past incarnation from thousands of years ago, Priest Seto. Now this Seto was extremely intelligent, just like his modern incarnation, setting the highest ever test scores within the Pharaoh's court. He also has that classic ruthlessness in him, but nonetheless, he was a noble priest, loyal to his people and to the Pharaoh. In other words, he was brutal, but despite that, he also had a strong sense of justice. This is displayed in the 5th and final season of the original anime series, where Yugi and friends travel back in time to ancient Egypt, where Seto and the Pharaoh lived. And of course, spoiler alert from now on for anyone that hasn't and is planning to watch this season. The gang stumbles upon Priest Seto, who's defending a strange looking woman being stoned. The reason they stone her is because they see her some kind of threat. Her strange appearance with white hair and blue eyes is seen as some kind of a bad omen. This is Kisara. Yugi and friends can't actually do anything to help her since physically they're not part of this realm. Thankfully, Seto scares off the crowd by threatening to punish anyone who sticks around, and afterwards sends Kisara to a private room to get all the food and water that she needs to recover. During the encounter, Shada senses a power within her that's potentially similar to the Egyptian gods. If it wasn't already obvious, that's the Blue Eyes White Dragon within her. Seto also notices that she looks extremely familiar because, in fact, this isn't the first time he encountered her. So let's go even further back. In his childhood, Seto came across a group of slave traders that kept a young girl captive. He notices her yelling and decides to help her by breaking her out and sending her off, to which she tells him she'll repay the favor one day. Little did both of them know that it would be this day. As Seto turns around, he sees that his village is being burnt to the ground. He tries to fight off the criminals that are setting fire to the village. But alas, this was a direct retaliation of the slave traders because he set free the slave girl that they captured. Before they can hurt Seto though, Kisara unleashes the Blue Eyes White Dragon and burst streams them off the face of the planet. Which brings us to the next part of our story. To fully understand Blue Eyes and Kisara, we need to know about Ka and Ba. These are real-life ancient Egyptian concepts, but to keep it simple, we'll only talk about how they relate to the Yu-Gi-Oh! World. Each person has a Ka and a Ba, a spirit and a soul. The soul, or the Ba, refers to what makes you, you. It's your personality. It's the part of you that can be considered either good or evil. Your Ba is also your life force, meaning if you run out of it, then technically you're dead. Life points are the modern day equivalent of Ba, which is why you lose a duel when your life points hit 0. Ka, on the other side, is your spirit. In the Yu-Gi-Oh! World, it's your spirit monster as well. Every person has one. A person with a good soul will have a good spirit monster and vice versa. Evil spirit, evil soul. Meaning what your monster is literally a reflection of what kind of person you are. Another interesting thing about Ka, or spirit monsters, is that they can be separated from a person's body and sealed in a stone tablet so that they can be summoned to fight. Seto would actually extract the evil Ka from criminals to reduce the crime rate and use those evil spirits to fight greater evils. And there you go, that's what Pegasus based monster cards off of. But see, this is why Kisara is different. A normal person's Ka and Ba are separate entities. This means that a person can still live on even if their Ka or spirit monster is taken away from them. With Kisara, her soul and spirit monster, her Ka and her Ba are intertwined. This is something unique and has a lot of consequences that don't happen to normal people. First of all, it changes her appearance, which is the reason for her pale skin, her blue eyes, and her white hair. Well, mostly white. It has a bluish tint to it, making it look blue in shadow. This kind of explains why the white dragon is usually depicted with this blue color. But hey, whether you buy that explanation is up to you. Moving on, because her Ka and Ba are intertwined, Kisara is actually unable to summon the Blue Eyes White Dragon unless she's unconscious. For a while, she didn't even know that this power existed inside of her. It only really came out when Seto needed her help. It also shows her true personality as well as the personality of Blue Eyes, since the Blue Eyes White Dragon is a reflection of her inner meekness, light, and strength. Although Blue Eyes' description states that it's a powerful engine of destruction, the dragon has historically never harmed people, unless it was forced to. This shows that Kisara and Blue Eyes are not only powerful because of the raw power they possess, but because they have a selfless restraint to hold that power back. To illustrate this, keep in mind that Blue Eyes White Dragon didn't even come out when Kisara herself was being stoned and potentially fatally harmed. But the moment you dare to put the ones that she cares about in danger, that's when you're taking a nice clean white lightning attack to the eye socket. The last unique thing about having her soul intertwined with Blue Eyes' spirit is that if Blue Eyes gets sealed in a stone tablet, Kisara will die. Since Blue Eyes is also her spirit and her life force, if you separate it from her, then she's done for. Unlike normal people who can still live on without their Ka. Enter Akhenaten, Seto's father and the one who wants to extract Blue Eyes from Kisara. To keep it short, Akhenaten is the twin brother of Akhnum-Kanen, father of the pharaoh Atem. So yeah, that does mean that these two were cousins back then. The thing is, growing up, Seto didn't even know that Akhenaten was his father. Akhenaten abandoned Seto and his wife to keep them safe, but when he saw how great his child had become and how smart he was, he wanted him to become the pharaoh, instead of Akhnum-Kanen's son. Through jealousy and corruption, Akhenaten planned to give Seto the power of the Blue Eyes White Dragon so that he could usurp the pharaoh, even at the cost of killing Kisara. His son, of course, refused because he cared about Kisara and was loyal to the pharaoh, something that's actually very surprising after seeing how Kaiba treats Yugi and Yami Yugi in the modern day world. Now, despite Seto saying no, Akhenaten tries to force the issue onto him and attempts to mind control the boy. More specifically, he tries to get Seto to kill the pharaoh, but for now, Seto can still resist most of the mind control, and Kisara senses this. Kisara comes running to his aid. On her way, she encounters Kaiba and mistakes him for Seto wearing weird clothes. Kaiba's really caught off guard here because she's the only person that can see him in this realm, showing that their bond is so strong it transcends time and space. After she reaches his side to protect him, they are reunited once again, but they didn't realize that this was an elaborate bait by Akhenaten in order to capture the Blue Eyes White Dragon. Akhenaten aims an attack at Seto, knowing that Kisara would act. She steps in the way and takes the attack for Seto, knocking her unconscious. Akhenaten then seals Blue Eyes into the tablet, sealing Kisara's fate. With no one left to protect Seto, Akhenaten possesses him and steers him to kill the pharaoh with the Blue Eyes White Dragon. But with whatever remained of her soul, Kisara protected Seto from evil one last time. She denied Akhenaten's command to use Blue Eyes White Dragon to attack the pharaoh, and banished him from Seto's mind. And finally, she passed on Blue Eyes White Dragon's spirit fully to Seto, making him the new keeper of the Ka as she passed away. Although Blue Eyes and Kisara were intertwined, that doesn't mean that Kisara lives on in Seto, as sad as that may seem. But at least she left him with the power to protect his people and those he loved, and the light to guide that power. I feel inclined to point out that the anime doesn't do this couple justice, missing out on key lines and character development. As I briefly mentioned earlier, in the manga, Seto wanted the Blue Eyes White Dragon at first. He knew he could take it from Kisara and would do anything to extract it from her even if it kills her because of the power it would bring him. But slowly he realizes that she's more important to him than the Blue Eyes White Dragon, and wanted her, not for any power he could get from her. As he laid her down in front of the tablets, he goes on to say these things, as well as how she was the only point of light in his soul tainted by darkness. All of which are omitted in the anime. In the modern day, Seto Kaiba is obsessed with the Blue Eyes White Dragon, basing his deck around them and building his machines to their appearance. Without a doubt, this is subconsciously due to his past relationship with Kisara. With all the history between them, it makes you kind of wonder what would have become of the relationship had these events not happened. Yu-Gi-Oh's creator Kazuki Takahashi has also stated that the story of Kisara and Seto was actually supposed to have way more detail behind it. But unfortunately, the manga deadlines and his health forced him to cut many details out. And that could have included further romance and a subplot where Seto lashes out to avenge Kisara. I also kind of hoped Kisara would have a modern day reincarnation like Seto, so that they can complete what was prematurely cut away from them. Either way, her story goes on in Maiden with Eyes of Blue, a card that's officially based on her character. Note the BE standing for Blue Eyes on her necklace and the dragons on her clothes. If you noticed, Maiden has 0 attack and defense, and a player can summon Blue Eyes through her but only reactively, when she's targeted or attacked. Similar to how Kisara could only unconsciously summon Blue Eyes to protect Seto. Her card counterpart also has a future, perhaps what her life would have been like if it wasn't cut short, and if she wasn't abused from the beginning for looking different. You can see the joy in her face even as she transitions into Priestess with Eyes of Blue. The similar looks, necklace, and dragon designs on her clothes are what hint to Priestess being the older form of Maiden. What's more interesting is that there are a total of 4 monsters with Eyes of Blue that appear in the card Mausoleum of White, including herself and Master with Eyes of Blue, Sage with Eyes of Blue, and Protector with Eyes of Blue. So perhaps there were a total of 4 individuals that existed whose Ka was a Blue Eyes White Dragon. This mirrors the modern Yu-Gi-Oh world where there are a total of not 3 but 4 Blue Eyes White Dragons printed. And of course, Kaiba tore up the 4th one because he didn't want a Blue Eyes used against him. Let's just hope it wasn't Kisara's. Moving on from Seto and Kisara's story, there's still quite a few cards that are related to Blue Eyes, like Rare Gold Armor. Well, that's kind of random. What does rare gold armor have to do with Blue Eyes? Well, it was an ordinary set of armor until it was possessed by a certain spirit. Perhaps this spirit was being given a second chance at life by inhabiting the rare gold armor and once again becoming flesh. This spirit then performs a ritual to summon a Blue Eyes White Dragon, which gives us a glimpse into what a younger version of Blue Eyes would look like. It's quite peculiar because Red Eyes has the progression from a stone to an egg into a baby Red Eyes, but Blue Eyes doesn't have a card that depicts his baby version. Instead, the effect counterpart of Black Dragon Chick is Kaiba Man, but with this ritual monster we get to see what an adolescent Blue Eyes would look like. And the Rare Gold Rider is now known as the Paladin of White Dragon. His story branches out into 2 possibilities. The first one is that the dragon he's riding fully matures into an adult, but it's far too strong for him to mount anymore, and that's all hinted by the effect. I don't think it would be a stretch either to say he might have been eaten by the Blue Eyes. Either way, his outcomes are pretty bleak. The second possibility is that he's met with an unfortunate fate where both he and his dragon are slain and revived as cursed zombies. If you really thought about it, Kishido's spirit has had a roller coaster of a life in this scenario. He dies, possesses an armor, lives again, dies again, and is reanimated yet another time. Can this man's soul just find rest already? But alas, with that, we've covered the main storylines behind the Blue Eyes White Dragon. I know there will be people asking about stories behind certain Blue Eyes support cards or his retrained and alternative versions. There are many of those, but they don't necessarily have backstories. They're mostly just upgrades or variations created solely for the characters to progress their decks or interact with certain cards. Anyways, I hope you got some education or entertainment out of this video. If you did, please help me out by liking and subscribing so that you can see more of this type of content. By the way, thanks for voting on the last one. It was a tough choice to make, but for those that voted World Legacy and Chalice, don't worry, that's coming up next. Feel free to comment on what other cards, backstories, and lore you'd like to see, and check out the playlist if you want to see what other lore I've already covered. With that said, stay safe in there, have yourselves a good one, and until the next time, this is Gunsblazing, signing out.